Now, there's three crucial things when it comes to making a fabulous meat pie at home. You have to have a lovely short crust pastry that won't go soggy, you need a flaky top, and you need a delicious stew. So let's get onto the stew first. This is chuck beef. Now, we need to seal it off, so in a large pan, we'll add 2 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, and we'll add the meat. Now make sure that this pan is super hot. We're not cooking the meat at this stage. What we're doing is just getting some caramelization, because when it comes to a stew, caramelization is key for extra flavour. So in with 1 kilo of chuck. So in it goes. And with your tongs, just spread it out. You want it to sizzle, you don't want it to stew at this stage. Now I'll add a small pinch of salt and a good crack of pepper. All right, let's turn this meat. Oh, perfect. Good colour, that's what we're looking for. Now I'll add a little bit more pepper on this side. And now while that finishes off sealing, let's get onto the vegetables. 3 cloves of garlic that I'll roughly chop. After cooking this for a long time, all of this garlic will dissolve and become quite sweet. All right, let's take this meat out. Just place it onto a plate. And now I'll add a little extra olive oil to start cooking our veggies. Now before I add the garlic, I like to add the holy trinity, the mirepoix. It's onions, along with carrots and celery. This is the base to most stews. And I'll tell you what, it's important because it does impart a sweetness and it also bulks out the stew. Now I'll just give that a toss, coat that in the oil. And we want to sweat this off, allow it to soften a little bit. I'll add our garlic now, and to impart a smokiness, a little speck. You can see that there's some fat through it, so that's going to give this a delightful flavour too. So let's mix this around. Now we'll just separate that and allow the fat to render into those vegetables, and I'll add a few sprigs of thyme at this stage. Give this 5 minutes and then we'll go on to the next stage. These vegetables have softened down, so now let's add some extra flavour. I love clove in my stew, and particularly for a meat pie filling. So just some ground clove, a pinch of that, also some tomato paste, and cook this for about 10 to 20 seconds to cook off the rawness of it. And now the meat can go in along with any of those juices, because that's going to make a lovely sauce. And then just coat all of that meat in that beautiful mirepoix. And to give this an extra meaty, savoury flavour, the addition of Worcestershire sauce. I've always got some Worcestershire sauce in the pantry. Now to thicken this meat sauce, some flour. I add it at this stage and allow it to cook for about 1 minute. If you don't cook out the flour, you'll really taste it in the end result. We don't want that. So stir, and you'll see it absorb all of the oils, and that's what you want. If it looks a little bit dry, it's okay because we're going to add liquid now. So keep stirring. And now for the liquid. I like the combination of port and red wine. So 250 mils of red wine and 250 mils of port, which is a fortified wine, and it also is going to impart some sweetness. And we need to cook this off. Now this will cook off for about 5 more minutes, reduced by half. We're going to cook off the alcohol. Then I'll add some continental beef stock. Now this is going to give it a really nice, rich, robust flavour. Now I'm adding 1 litre of stock to this because I want to cover all of that meat so it cooks nice and slowly and doesn't dry out. Now that the meat is completely submerged, I'll add some mushrooms. I love the combination of beef and mushrooms, so we'll add them. I've just cut them into quarters. And I'll cover this with a cartouche, which is just a very fancy name for a piece of baking paper that's cut into a circle. And this just gives us extra assurance when it's cooking so it stays super moist. All right, get a knife. I'll measure that out. I'll cut that. And also a little hole in the centre so the steam can escape. And now the lid goes on. And I'll turn this down to a gentle heat. This is going to cook for about an hour and a half, low and slow, so we get perfect tender meat. Then I'll allow it to cool and shred the meat a little. This stew looks so good. It's got a thick sauce. The meat is so soft. And I've just been shredding it with 2 forks, so there's not really big chunks in this. By shredding it, you can also see that we coat each piece of meat in that gorgeous, lush sauce. Now, this has cooled down, and I'll also take out all of the thyme stalks. They've done their job. Now for assembling, I've preheated my oven to 200 degrees, and I've given myself a head start with the pastry. I'm using store-bought short crust pastry just to make life a little easier, and blind baking it is very simple. You just place the pastry into the pie dish. This is a 23 centimetre pie dish. I then lined it with some baking paper and then added some rice just to weigh it down. I baked it for about 15 minutes, removed the baking paper and cook it for another 10 minutes just so it goes quite crispy. Now let's start filling the pie. This is where all the magic happens. We'll just pour this in. And this is a family size pie. You can make individual ones too. Spread the meat out. We don't want to leave any of that gorgeous sauce. And then with the back of the spoon, press down on this so there's no air bubbles and each little nook and cranny is filled with that luscious stew. Now for the topping, some good old puff pastry so it goes really flaky. We also need to seal this and make it golden brown, so 1 egg into a bowl. And with a fork, give that a really good whisk. All right, now we need to place this puff pastry on top of the meat stew. I like to use a rolling pin just to carefully take it off the paper and then over the top, covering all the meat. Stretch it out. And now we need to seal this. So I like to do a bit of collage here. We want to cut the sides just so it sticks down. And you want to work quite quickly with puff pastry. When it gets a bit too soft, it's hard to manage. Now we've cut off the excess. So just with a fork, we're going to press down the sides so it seals it. It also gives it a lovely little pattern. And then to make sure that this puffs up nice and evenly, we just need a little steaming point. So with your knife, just cut an incision in the centre. Now the last thing is just to lightly brush this with our egg wash. Let's spread that out. Now this bakes in the oven for about 30 to 35 minutes or until that pastry puffs up nicely and is golden brown. Oh, I'm so happy with this pie. Look how flaky and golden it is. Allow it to cool slightly before you cut into it. And it's the moment of truth. I'm going to dig into this. I don't like to demold it, particularly if you're doing a family size. It's just so much easier to cut into it and portion it just like this. Isn't that a fantastic sound? Crispy pastry. And then just with a cake slice, carefully take that portion out. Oh, wow. That is a pretty special pie. I'm so happy with this pie. I think it's probably one of the best pies I've done in a long time. You know what makes it great? Like I said at the beginning, flaky top, the bottom's perfect, and that stew is just rich and thick. I'm gonna dig into this one. And you know what? It doesn't need any tomato sauce. There's enough sauce in that gorgeous beef stew. That there, my friends, is the most delicious decadent meat pie and no tomato sauce required.